The Guardians got cooled off on Thursday, but the trade deadline, it is heating up, and the Guardians, they have to make a move one way or another, even if it's unpopular.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Friday edition of Locked On Guardians. We got a lot to get through in today's episode, so thank you for being here with us. It's the only show that covers the Cleveland Guardians every day, from the majors to the minors, the draft, everything in between. That's our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's your favorite half hour of the day, spending it with us. I'm Justin Lada. I have been co-hosting this podcast with Jeff Ellis, my friend and co-host, since October 2022. I've also been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007, doing prospect scouting reports and analysis for the News Herald, the Morning Journal, and many other sites in that time. But the most important thing is the 5 days a week here with you, Jeff, and all of our everydayers.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Ellis, as mentioned. I've been here for all 1,500 episodes. Came over after spending a time as national writer at Scout in 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft. I want to thank you for making this episode your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. And a big shout out to all of our everydayers. Romeo1810 with a nice comment in the YouTube a day ago, so shout him out. And again, if you can, we had someone who keeps updating their review to troll us on iTunes. So if you just want to either update or write us a new review on iTunes, we would greatly appreciate it. Just like to have them positive at the bottom for anyone who might be new, because we're always growing. It's the same reason we do introductions. There's always growing. There's always new listeners. And we're thankful to everyone, new and old, for joining us.
Absolutely. And, if you don't want to give us a 5-star review, at least tell us how we can get a little bit better. Anyway, we've got a lot to get to on today's show. We'll talk about trade rumors. We know one trade's already happened. Josh Naylor to the Mariners. We'll talk about the domino effect of that. An unpopular move the Guardians have to make. We'll talk about that and some other trade moves that they'll have to make. And then, of course, we have to start off with the loss to the Orioles, but Logan Allen showcasing himself in the best way in that game. Before we get it going today, though, today's episode made possible by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Jeff, I think Logan Allen did a great job showcasing himself in that game against the Orioles. He had a bad first inning. He did give up the 2 runs early on, and then Angel Martinez, kind of played his way into a 3rd run, so I'm not going to blame Allen for that, because Martinez just made a horrid read in center field. After that, the Eric Sabrowski came in and relieved him and gave him a run. But I was really impressed with how Allen bounced back from that first inning and kept him on the board, or kept him off the board, and gave the Guardians offense time to come back. They just didn't have enough at the end. They had opportunities and didn't cash in. But, after the way they played recently, all the runs they've scored, it was due to kind of come around on them. And
they still battled back. It's deflating to give up early runs, and a lot of it was Steven Kwan. Let's be honest. The top of it, it was kind of like not the really bad section, and not when they've been really good. It was that in between part of the year where you had like 4 guys doing something, the rest of the lineup just sitting around with no production. I will say, I think one of the big things I think I saw exposed with the lineup in today's game, and I texted you, was when Manzardo was at second base, or no, even when he was at first base. It's like at that point in the late stages of the game, it would have been nice to have someone with speed on their bench that could have gone to. But it was like Bo Naylor and J-Rod, and there wasn't anyone. Like, it'd be nice to have a little more diversity in that lineup, which hopefully we'll see at some point as players start to get healthy.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Gabriel sounds like he's joining the team in Kansas City, so we'll have to figure out what they're doing with that spot. I would assume Will Wilson goes down, but yeah,
yes.
When you play Will Wilson, and then I know Rocchio's been better since he came back, but he had a rough day on Thursday, and then Austin Hedges in the 9th spot. That's not a great. That's almost 6 or 9 automatic outs per game between them. So it's kind of rough. But no, Steven Kwan looked great. He had the 2 home runs, his first multi-home run game of his career. He also had a walk. Jeff, since the All-Star break, since that All-Star game he played in that you didn't like, he's got 2 homers. He's hitting 5 for 15, a slugging percentage over 1,000. He almost had half as many home runs in Thursday's game as he did all the first half. He had 6 in the first half. He had 2 in this one. I'd say the wrist is pretty good. I think it worked out.
Think how much better it would be if he had actually just taken a week off.
Well, they won the games he didn't play in over the weekend. They won the series 2 out of 3. They didn't
That's
need him.
nice. Think how much healthier and how much better he'd perform if he actually took time off instead of playing the All-Star game.
I mean, hard to argue with 5 hits and 15 at bats, I'd say.
Well, he could have been even better. That's all I'm saying. Rocchio, it's 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. It was an ugly game. He's now 0 for his last 7, and he's 1 for his last 10. So not ideal. We're starting to see kind of some of that old, maybe, again, why I'm not jumping to call anyone the professor after a hot week. See if he can continue. But it's been a bit of a struggle over the last 3 games for him, though he did have the big hit on, going back.
Yeah, I mean, the professor thing I was joking more about just because
I know.
Of the safety squeeze and the defense have been better. So at least there's that. Hopefully that kind of thing doesn't slump for him. But overall, I mean, hard to get too upset about this game. Obviously I was using showcase and jest. Not like Logan Allen pitched well against the Orioles and all of a sudden teams are going to be calling about him. We talked a lot about trade opportunities for Logan Allen on Thursday's show if you want to go back and listen to it. Truthfully, I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting for the Guardians to use him as a trade candidate. I don't think they will. No. I don't think he's going to carry a ton of value. I mean, you could probably get something from him, obviously, because he's got control and he's a nice back-end starter, but you have to be reasonable about teams buying low upside with him and whatever they get offered. I don't think the Guardians would accept anyway. I just don't think you're going to get much for him. Like, he's got some value, but he probably has more value for the depth for the Guardians than he does for other teams, and that's why he probably is going to stay. But it's at least if he's going to stay, I don't know how roles will shake out when Bieber comes back. Bieber's got another rehab start coming on, I believe, Sunday, and they're deciding between Lake County and Columbus. I would probably lean Columbus just because of A, scouting, B, readiness overall. But, Logan Allen has done a good job this year for the most part.
I agree. I don't think they trade him, but I do think there's just some trade value anytime you have a lefty of any kind who he's been rubber armed and healthy. And there's so many teams right now, even a team like Arizona, like if you could find the right trade, because they're losing some, like it's teams like Arizona and Toronto that they're looking at this year, but they're also looking to next year and having depth because it's always about depth. So I have no idea what that would look like, but it's teams like that I think there's not going to be enough starters to go around. So I think he could, but I agree with you. I don't think they've spent too much time building up starting pitching depth to then go ahead and lose Ortiz to then trade another piece.
If you still had Ortiz, then maybe this is a different story. Or even using Cantillo, if that was the case too, that's also an option. But I don't think they will. And of course the Guardians, what are they going to ask for in return for a guy like Logan Allen because of control and because he's also pre-arb? Like, they're going to be asking you for a controllable young outfielder. They're going to be looking for at least 3 years of control of an outfielder who can help them this year and the next couple of years, probably right-handed. Like, the ask they're going to ask for Logan Allen is probably not going to be met, and that's the whole point. Like, and I don't blame them. Like, if you're going to use that as a trade chip, you want to make sure you're maxing out the value. And, again, that's the thing with the Guardians, that they're very stubborn in their decisions. They set values on guys, and they don't back off. Like, they don't meet teams in the middle, right? Like they set a price on a guy, and if you don't reach it, they just don't trade a guy unless, like, even the Josh Naylor trade for them for Arizona, which, by the way, we'll talk about in the second segment. But even that trade, like, they still had a really good value on him, and pretty clear that they got better value for Naylor for a whole year than Arizona is going to get for
significantly
2 months. More. Yeah. So teams just don't like. They are notoriously hard to negotiate with, which is, for better or for worse in some cases. So that's why I'm saying, like, even if we wanted to use Logan Allen as a trade chip, they're probably going to value him to the point where no team's going to meet him, and that has to be a controllable. I don't think you could trade him for anything less than a controllable outfielder, so I understand why they wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I think any controllable bat, let's be honest, you can only shift the second baseman. So I think it's just, as long as they're not a first baseman, let's put it that way.
Yeah, not a first baseman, not a left fielder. Even then, you can always move outfielders around. All right. The first trade domino has fallen in the trade deadline. The Guardians, they got to pick kind of a lane of what they're going to do. And I think one of those moves, Jeff's, has to be an unpopular move. We'll talk about that next on today's Locked On Guardians. So last Friday, I went to Guardians and Athletics, and I used Game Time. I did buy tickets last minute on Game Time, and I wanted to be there. I had nothing else to do. My wife was on vacation out of town without me. She's a teacher, so she had the day off and the weekend off, and I did not. So I used Game Time to grab last minute tickets, and I I didn't stress at all because I was like, well, I want to go to the game, but like I'm gonna look for the perfect section. I'm gonna go alone, and I'm gonna want to pay a good price, and I wanted to buy some dollar dogs. So I did save money on my tickets, so I could buy dollar dogs. Game Time made that all possible for me. It can do the same thing for you. They are the official ticketing partner of Locked On Guardians, Locked On MLB. So you can go to any game you want. Maybe you want to go to Josh Naylor Appreciation Night. I believe August 29th, the Mariners come to town. So you can check that out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. To create your account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. That is a guarantee. All right, Josh Naylor is now a Seattle Mariner. Jeff, I think the return for him was fine for what like the
if you don't factor
Diamondbacks,
in the cost, like the cost they paid to get him, which
if you want to take a multi-tier approach to this, where if you want to say, well, we had to give up, you're right. If we had to give up Slade Ciccone and a comp B pick for Josh Naylor, and all we're getting really back was a half season of him and Ashton Izzy and Braden Garcia, which
Garcia's a left-handed reliever. There's always value in that. Teams are always looking for relievers, but he's not a proven one. Like if he was, he'd
got
be
a good
in
fastball.
The pen right now. He doesn't have a third pitch, and Izzy is 21 and still an A-ball and hasn't. I mean, he's pitched a lot of innings, but he hasn't progressed, and he's gotten hit pretty hard. Like they got 2 lotto tickets. Like they didn't get a top 10 prospect for him.
No,
like that. Like I honestly, I think the comp B pick is more valuable than either of them. Either piece, and that's not even factoring in Slade Ciccone. And again, like I know a lot of people when we trade now, they're like, that's all they got. And even we were at the time were like a degree of, I thought, why Slade Ciccone? But then we found out that multiple teams were after this guy. And right now, one of the things that I brought up in segment 1, Arizona is looking to maybe do a half. They're trying to thread the needle as well. They got an 81-year-old owner who talked about being close to death when they signed Corbin Burns,
right?
So they're losing 2 starters this offseason, so they're trying to thread their own needle. So they could definitely use someone like Slade Ciccone right now.
Yeah, and I will point out too, the Mariners have a very good farm system, so trading those 2 guys might be better than some other systems have to offer. But yeah, Izzy might be a decent starter. But the whole point here is that the movement's on. And I don't think we're going to play a whole lot of first base musical chairs. I was just thinking about like what other first basemen are on the move. Like Ryan O'Hearn from the Orioles definitely is going to get moved, and the Mariners have already moved the market there. So, like, I don't think the Red Sox will go after Ryan O'Hearn, or maybe
I don't know if they're going to add anyone. I got to be honest. They have such depth that they're not even playing all their outfielders. Roman Anthony played first base coming up. I wouldn't be surprised if they. And they've had Abraham and Toro's been okay for them there, like top 15 production since May 1st.
If they want to go to the playoffs, I think they want to upgrade somewhere in the lineup. So we'll see.
I'm not. I'll say since May 1st, Abraham Toro has a higher WRC plus than O'Hearn, than Santana, than all of those guys. So you got to. Are they upgrades? That's always the question. Is it a real upgrade?
Speaking of which, so. This return for Josh Naylor, and given Santana's production, doesn't paint a great picture. Like we were talking about, like whether or not the Guardians would or should move Carlos Santana, and 100% I think they should move Carlos Santana if they can get anything for him. I think the question has now shifted to, can you get anything for Carlos Santana for what's remaining on his salary, the lack of production? Because right now, what Santana brings is clubhouse presence, the ability to take walks, and a good glove at first base. Like he's not offering a whole lot else to the Guardians or anybody else. So given what the Guardians or what the Mariners had to give up for Josh Naylor, doesn't present a great option, especially when some team will trade for Ryan O'Hearn. I don't know who it'll be, but somebody will trade for Ryan O'Hearn. And I'm willing to bet Ryan O'Hearn is going to cost the team more than they would Carlos Santana. Otherwise,
definitely.
Yeah. This is going to be really unpopular, but I got to say, I hate to say this because we've talked about how much, we like Carlos Santana, how important he's been here. I think the Guardians got to move on. I think they have to make the unpopular move and move on from Santana some way or another, because the floor for him at this point is not any better. Like, he's not bringing you the consistency you want. They need to give CJ Kafis a look. They clearly don't want to do it in the outfield. I know he played outfield on Thursday in AAA. He's played the outfield at some points this year, but the Guardians continue to like say like, well, we just don't want his first taste of the big leagues to be in AAA or to be in the outfield. So the only way to do that is bring up CJ Kafis and move on from Carlos Santana. It's going to be unpopular. Maybe not. I don't know if it'll be unpopular with the fan base at this point, but maybe in the clubhouse a little bit. But look, you're trying to raise your ceiling for this year a little bit, right? The floor we've already seen the floor. You want to raise your ceiling a little bit while also trying to play for 2026. You're trying to thread the needle, as we keep saying. The way you're going to thread the needle is you're going to play a prospect like CJ Kafis. Try to raise your ceiling for this year, because there's no doubt CJ Kafis gives you more ceiling in 2025, but you're also looking to see if he can be a part of 2026. I just think, as much as it sucks to see Santana go this way, I think they have to make that move somehow.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue with Santana, when we get right down to it, is he has the 10th highest salary of any first baseman in baseball this year, and he has been, since you get rid of May, he's been the least productive offensive first baseman. Now, if we say that's unfair to take care, get rid of an entire month, he's still in the bottom half. Like, there was a great piece on Fangraphs about how he was adjusting at age 39, but now it's like even today, his pinch hit at bat, he swung a ball forward that was clearly out of the zone. Like his eye, he's too aggressive to the point that he's sitting back and it's requiring him to kind of be a bit more aggressive, and it's just not working. So I don't know what you do, because I got to be honest, you're probably looking at cutting him more than anything else. And I don't know how that will sit with players. It's one thing when guys are traded. It's another thing when you cut a veteran guy to bring up a rookie they don't know. And it's a difficult situation, because, we talked about trades with Santana and we brought up all these prospects. More and more, I feel like when you trade Santana, if you're able to actually trade him, it's just going to be a straight, they take his contract and that's all you get. I don't think there's. I mean, that would be best case scenario.
That would be best case scenario. Because I mean, there's a very good chance, considering his limitations position wise. Not that he's not a good defensive first baseman, but the limitations on his position makes him it's already a pretty bad market. I don't think any team is going to be jumping to take that salary. So and I don't think Cleveland's going to sit there and say, well, eat the salary if we can get a prospect back. I think you're lucky. I think you're just lucky if you call a team and you say, do you want Santana? And they say yes. Whether or not they take a salary, or whether or not you get some sort of I don't know, A-ball reliever.
I think you're just hoping to split the salary.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the hope there. But yeah, CJ Kafis raises your ceiling for this year. We already know what the floor looks like with Santana.
It does drop your floor, though. Let's be honest. It does drop your floor.
It does.
Pretty significantly, because we've seen a lot of things that Kafis can't do in AAA, and we've seen a lot of guys struggle with that translation. And he's not the defender Santana is. So it does raise your ceiling a good amount, but it also significantly lowers the floor.
He's not as good as a defender as Santana at first base, but he's still a good defender at first base.
Yeah, he's okay.
Maybe you get him up in maybe you get in the majors at first base. You let him get his feet under him. Maybe you try him in the outfield if things go well, and you might have a solution there. Because here's the thing. We'll talk about this in the next segment about which trades the Guardians may or may not make, but it's going to be hard for the Guardians to upgrade, A, because of the market, B, because of their position. And the one way you can really do it right now, Brito's not coming up. DeLauder's not coming up. The only way you're going to bring a prospect up at this point is literally Kafis. And I think you have to do it just for his sake for next year and to raise your ceiling on this year, because you're going to have a hard time making significant upgrades. And you can we'll talk about some marginal upgrades in the next segment, but Kafis is probably maybe the best move you can make. And that might be, like you said, a low floor, but I think it's one they have to make. And I don't know what it'll be like in the clubhouse. We'll see, but I think it has to be made. All right. The trade deadline is coming in less than a week. The first moves have been made. What's going to happen next? We'll talk about whether or not the Guardians will make any moves, whether they're significant or on the margins. All coming up next on today's Locked On Guardians.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Day Hue, and so is this hat I'm wearing for, Guardians fans like me. This one hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, I love the clean look, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro team and college fan base. It's letting the colors speak for you, No giant logos, just a nice, clean look. And I want to again point out the back on this nice aeration. Hot day. It's nice to get a little breeze and feel that, have that airflow. Also, it's not just hats. Check out the split shade gloves made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who is everything. Someone said that I had this on the wrong hand. No, it's got a thumb. I don't know how I would put it on the other hand. So right now you can get 15% off with the code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundles and deals. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. Again, look at how nice these colors are. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. And then I also have to talk about the fact that today's episode is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain easier. Managing logistics easier. Responding to price changes easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hard-working minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com. You're muted.
Appreciate you all being here with us on Locked On Guardians every day. Make sure you are auto-downloading on audio, as always, to make sure you never miss an episode, including the Squad Show, which comes your way once a week. And on YouTube, hit the bell so you never miss an episode. You never miss the Squad Show there. Game reaction videos, breaking news reaction videos when guys break their bones, which seems to happen quite often. And then, of course, trades. Whenever trades happen, we'll also jump on there. So you want to get those reaction videos sent straight to your phone. So hit the bell. All right, where do you want to start, Jeff? Because I keep seeing a lot of, like, obviously people are asking about, Steven Kwan, is he going to get traded? Is Emmanuel Clase going to get traded? And I want to ask you, I think the odds are very, very low for a lot of reasons. The names are popping up because teams are calling. I don't think these are things that happen in the next week. I think they're things you revisit in the offseason. But even then, again, this is what we talked about in the first segment. The Guardians set their price high on their players if they're not motivated to trade them, and then they shouldn't be motivated to sell Kwan or Clase right now. I think the real way to look at this is what would it take? What would it take for a team to get one of those pieces? Like I saw a tweet that said, well, the Phillies and Padres are interested in Steven Kwan. I'm thinking, there is not a single player in that system I can think of the Guardians wanting in return for Steven Kwan. Like, there's no way like anybody in those systems makes sense.
Well, here's the thing I'll say too, just at a very basic level, is that when you're looking at the reports, it's interesting how many of the reports are mixed. That for every, John Heyman, who I got to be honest, I don't trust. There's a Buster Olney, who I do trust, who says, no, they're not even listening on these guys, which is also what Hoyne said, who, again, is a much better source on the org. He's broken news. Like, he's one of the few people who will actually break news about Guardians moves. Like, I'm going to look at the people who actually have some connection, whereas Heyman is just a Boris mouthpiece. Let's be very honest about that. Like, we all know that.
Right.
And none of the people we talked about, I believe, are Boris clients. Like, I don't think any of those four. So he doesn't actually have any knowledge on them directly, because we know where Heyman gets his information. So when you're looking at it, I know it, and outside of Passan saying that, like, they'll listen on Bieber, which I'm not sure about. I think that it's just silly. Like, it's silly talk. It's teams want to talk about these guys, and fan bases want to, and writers want to as well. Let's be very honest. I always joke about trying to put something provocative in our thumbnail. We never do it, but I always joke about it because it gets more attention, right? Like, it gets people to look. It's been the joke for years. Put someone scantily clad in your thumbnail and people look at it. We'll watch that video on YouTube. Knows
what it means, but it's provocative.
That's what it is. And you know what? It's provocative, talking about trading a Steven Kwan, who's been an all-star 2 years in a row, trading Emmanuel Clase, who's been arguably the best reliever in baseball. Maybe Cade Smith doesn't get as much of a jump as some of those other guys, but the point of view is like right now, Kwan and Smith are two of the biggest names. And the other part of it is honestly the whole BS we deal with as Cleveland fans. Let's be very honest too. I mean, I've had to deal with terrible Yankees trades for Jose Ramirez for the last 2 weeks because these bigger market squads, and remember, a lot of articles get written for bigger markets because that's what's going to get you the most eyes. That's going to get you the most attention. When you write a national piece, you don't care about if Cleveland's tuning in. You care about if the bigger markets are. That's just the truth of it. But let me just finish real quick. Let me finish. But when they do this, it's always never at the point of view. Jim Bowden's famous for this. It's never at the point of view of the small market team. It's at the point of view of the big market team. So you're writing this with these names because, hey, Philadelphia, hey, LA, hey, New York. These are guys you could get, and that's what's going to get you eyeballs. And that's why these pieces, I believe, more often than not, get written.
Yeah, or agents, like you say. It could be agent too. We always have to pay attention to who's releasing what info and who gets their info from where. And the thing that makes it unlikely for Clase is that he's making $6.4 million next year. That's still a drop in the bucket in terms of closers. It's like less than it's a little over $2 million for him, an increase for next year. I could buy the Bieber thing a little bit because think about it. If you don't want to trade Clase and you don't want to trade Kwan or Cade Smith, which I think is preposterous because Cade Smith is even arbitration eligible next year. Can you imagine the asking price for Cade Smith would just be astronomical? So Bieber, I guess in theory, if someone really feels like they want him for the deadline, like let's say it's the Cubs or something else, like I could see you getting a little more value out of him for the upside there because people think if he looks good in rehab, he could be buying a number 2 starter, I guess, if things look really good on the high end of things. But I think it's unlikely that teams are really going to pony up for that, like we said. But like, think about this. Like I saw like a thing like, well, the Dodgers are reluctant to trade Dalton Rushing in any moves. They don't want to move him. It's like, well, of course they don't want to move him. And of course they're going to say that too, because that only drives up his value. But if you're the Guardians, let's just entertain the Dodgers for a second. And people are like, well, what about, like, let's take Andy Pages off the table because the Dodgers are not trading it. That's not happening, Andy Pages. The Guardians would not talk to the Dodgers about seriously unless there is a guy like Dalton Rushing in the deal. Josue DePaula does nothing for them because he's a great prospect, but he's not helping you this year, and he's certainly not helping you next year. And that's what the Guardians are going to look for. They're not looking for 2027, 2028. They always, in these kind of trades, they look for guys who can help right now. Like, go back to the Clevenger deal, go back to the Bauer deals, the Josh Naylor deal. They all have looked for guys who can help now and later. They do a combined thing, especially when you're talking about guys that are controlled assets like Clase and Kwan. So the Dodgers can sit there and say, I don't want to trade Dalton Rushing all I want. Of course they want to say that because it drives up his value. It makes the negotiations harder. But they're not going to trade for Josue DePaula as the main piece, no matter what you do. That's just kicking the can way further down the road. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
That applies to every other organization, not just the Dodgers, but that's just the easiest example to point to.
No, and it just comes down to a plain and simple thing. The Dodgers, if they're looking to make their team better, aren't going to weaken one position to do it. Like, they have depth to go out and trade. That's why a Pages is just completely off the table before you even get into a discussion.
Because they want outfield help. Why would they trade outfield help away if they want outfield help?
Because Conforto has been a disaster for them. And I mean, offensively,
Teoscar Hernandez is not having a great year.
I mean, offensively, the Dodgers are in bad shape right now. Like, their offense is cratered over the last month. Cleveland's got a higher WRC plus than the Dodgers over the last month of baseball since the start of July, I should say. Like, that's where it is. It is a weird sport. So yeah, I think those three don't make those, the kind of the core guys that get brought up all the time don't make a lot of sense. They're not going to trade, because that's the other part. Like, establishing talent is hard to do, and they don't always have the spots to establish talent. That's, why some of those guys like Gurney Clement found the opportunities elsewhere. So once a player is established here, they haven't sold anyone with multiple years of control since Clevenger, who was a whole different situation, right? Like, I mean, other than that, it was Lindor's walk year. It was Naylor's walk year. It's been walk years for a reason, because when you have a guy locked into a valuable, contract, Ahmed Rosario, walk year. Now, I know he didn't have, but he was a guy as a shortstop had value in the seasons leading up to it. It just, they chose to keep with him. because shortstops always have value. Teams always need up.
I mean, technically, Andres Gimenez had long-term value or control, but that was a different
contract underwater. You know,
yeah, which
it was the same thing with Miles Straw too. It's like they traded bad contracts at that time, but everyone who has had actual value, who is unsigned, has not been. They're not trading guys with multiple years of control anymore. They're just not. They're riding them to the end because you can get a decent return in the offseason leading up, and
Josh Naylor for Comp B and Slate Ciccone looks pretty darn good right now compared to.
And you're also the part you have to factor into all the value in any trade is like the years you're getting. Like you're giving up that chance of a year. And, you know, they don't have guys ready. They don't have anyone ready to replace Kwan now. You're hoping maybe by the time it's the end of it that it's a Rosario or something like that. They don't have those pieces now. And you have to. So you can't trade an outfielder when your number one outfield prospect is made of Swiss cheese and is going on the disabled list. And, you know, Brito, who has played some outfielders, played all over, is also not going to play this year. They're not trading Kwan. They're not punting this season. They have shown no signs of that so far. So
and Kwan's only hitting ARB 2 next year. He's still got a whole another year. So revisit this conversation in the offseason. Real quick, just want to throw this out there. Tom Hamilton going to the Hall of Fame this weekend. Very much deserved for him to be in the Hall of Fame. This is long overdue. One of the best humans you're ever going to meet. And we are so spoiled in Cleveland with these broadcasters over the years that, you know, just legendary. And my Tom Hamilton story is this. So my wife, where she teaches, one of Jason Lloyd from The Athletic, one of his kids goes to the school where my wife teaches, and had him in the PTA group, and they happen to know Tom Hamilton. My wife was talking to them and was like, "Oh, I heard, you know, Tom does these things for weddings where he does intros," and she brought that up, and the parents were like, "Oh, we know Tom. We could get that done for you." This is like, I think, late 2022. Our wedding was summer 2023. Fast forward to, like, I don't know, 3 months before our wedding, 4 months before our wedding, Tom Hamilton sends us a file, and it's him recording the intro to our wedding, introducing us to our wedding into the tent. And he goes, "Well, if they don't like it, I could do something else. Like, let me know." It's like Tom does not even know us from anybody, and he was willing to do that for total strangers. And he was like, "If it's not good enough, I'll redo it for them." Again, total strangers. So that doesn't tell you the kind of person Tom Hamilton is. I don't know what does. And I'm excited to see him finally get his due in the Hall of Fame.
Yep, it's well deserved. You know, Herb Score was one of my youth on the radio, and radio wise, I would say in particular, we have been a spoiled fan base in a good way. Yeah, and hopefully we've spoiled you with fun content this week. Again, leave an iTunes review or review wherever you listen. It always helps. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully it'll be a nice weekend, and we'll come back supercharged to talk about gaining more ground in the wild card and the division.
Yep, Guards Royals, and then we'll talk more trade deadline on Monday.
And thank you for joining us, and go Guardians, go.